This evening we're going to talk a little bit about retirement basics. I'm going to touch a little bit on the different tax codes because we always hear like 401k, 457, IRAs, what does it all mean? So we'll talk and touch a little bit about that. I have some websites and I logged into the internet this time so that I can show you those websites, so when you go home you recognize and think, oh yeah, this is a site that she said to go to and I'm not going somewhere where I shouldn't be. And then I have the slides. I apologize, I usually have a chance to do a draft print, and this time I was running out the doors, I grabbed these, so a couple slides didn't print very clearly, just because of how I had done the background, so I apologize for that. What I wanted to review with you really quick is just some things we talked about last week. Just keep in mind, stock means ownership in a company. If you own a piece of a stock, you purchased a share or a chunk of the company, and then you as owner of that company become a shareholder. So that's just kind of the lingo related to the stocks. Bonds are when you loan your money to companies. So the interest rates typically on bonds don't grow as much as stocks or as quickly, but it's a more steady stream. And then mutual funds are a pool of different investments. In a mutual fund, you might have bonds and you might have stocks together. You might decide in your mutual fund you just want to do the top 500 companies in the United States, and you could do that through like an index fund or something like that. So a mutual fund is just a pool and you can kind of choose what you put in there. And then we didn't spend a lot of time on this. A few stayed after and were asking some different questions. Just wanted to touch on what's the difference between a money market deposit account and what's the difference between a money market mutual fund account. Money market deposit accounts you can purchase through your bank. They work or earn similar interest rates as a certificate of deposit, but whereas with a certificate of deposit, you're depositing your money and you don't get it out for a set time frame. They'll say if you keep your money here for 3 years, we'll give you 4% interest. A money market deposit account is probably going to earn that higher interest, but it functions more like a checking or savings account, and you can do 6 withdrawals and transfers a month. So you're putting money in there, you have the ability to earn higher interest on it, but you can also take it out with more ease if you need to. Money market mutual funds are funds that own and function more similar to like a stock, except they're a lot more secure, and usually with money market mutual funds, because the share value is only $1 per share, because they use securities that are only good for a year, so there is a ton of turnover. But usually on these, you're going to earn between 3 and 4%. So if you're wanting to go maybe a little higher than what your bank's offering, but that stock market still scares you, or you want to diversify a little bit more, money market mutual funds through an investment firm or a broker can be a good way to go. Just know when you look at the price, you might be trying to compare them and think, why is it every share $1? That's just how they price all money market mutual funds, but you can earn about 3 to 4% on there, just short-term securities that way. So deposit accounts, you can do transfers, and then probably the biggest difference if somebody is really, really risk averse, they don't want a chance of losing anything, is your deposit accounts in the money markets are insured by the FDIC, where they're not with money market mutual funds. So I think those are the biggest differences that way if you're looking and you're kind of confused like what's going on. This nasty slide has a lot of different words that I might say throughout the duration of the class, and I just wanted to give them to you now, and we'll touch back on it in a few minutes. But minimum investment required. This is the least amount of money required or needed to open an investment. So certain brokerage accounts, if you're looking to open your fund or you don't feel confident in managing it all yourself and you want someone to help you out, you might think, this is the best fund for me, I really like it, and then you'll go to open it and they might say, oh, Melissa or Joyce, you need to have $1,000. And you think, oh shoot, I forgot about that minimum investment required. So just be aware of that. Your contribution limits, we'll talk a lot about these, especially when we get down into the 401ks. That's the most you can invest in the account per year. So from January to December 31st. Required withdrawals. A few of these accounts will actually make you take your money out, if you haven't already, at 70.5. They say, okay, you should be done working, you should be maybe hopefully enjoying life, and you might not need that money, but if you've got it in certain investments, they want you to take that money out to start spending your account down. So that's what that means. These numbers, the 457, 403B, and the IRA, These are all different acronyms or notes for retirement accounts that we'll touch on. If you're wondering what crazy came up with that, that is the Internal Revenue Service. They use these numbers just as their tax code and laws, and rather than call the account something different, they just stuck with what they call it and refer to it as in the tax code. Rollovers or transfers are if you have an investment and you need to move it from one location to another. Let's say you worked at Smith's grocery store and you were there for 20 years and then you're going to transfer over to Fresh Market grocery store. You might want to roll your 401k over, and that's what that means when you switch companies. Pensions are going kind of the way of the dinosaurs. If your company offers a pension, more power to you. But a pension was very common in our grandparents' time frame. You would work for a company for 30 years and you knew exactly how much they would pay you each month when you retired. That is something that's called a defined benefit plan, or if you get confused, you can think it's defined. If I'm defining a word, it's clear, or I know exactly what I'm getting. So a pension, you knew exactly what you were getting, regardless of the market. Joyce, you worked at a company 30 years, you knew when you retired they were going to pay you $2,000 a month. So we'll touch on that. But if you have companies that offer pensions, they're great. A lot of them don't offer them anymore, and we'll talk a little bit about why. And then the defined contribution plan. These are offered through your employers. Defined contribution means that you guys get to decide how your funds are invested, but it's not, so you're defining, and you certainly know where your money's going. You don't always know how much you're going to get out because it's fluctuating with the markets. So that's kind of the difference there. Defined benefit, you always know what you're going to get. Defined contribution, you're controlling the investment options, but the amounts you're able to pull out depend very much on the market. If you were to retire, maybe at the first of, if you wanted to retire January 4th of this year, and you had left a lot of money in your stock account, and you had tons of money in there, your portfolio, your investments probably took a hit, and you may have had to rethink some of your retirement plans because you didn't get stuff transferred out of the markets anymore. So that's kind of discipline to keep in mind that way. Where do we start for investing? We can always say, like I did last time, sit down and kind of figure out what your goals were. We talked about risk analysis. Where do I start for retirement? I want to show you guys some websites that are helpful, but consider all of your options. It's a good idea to sit down either with yourself if you don't talk to your spouse or your partner about finances, or sit down together and talk about them. But figure out, where do you have all your money? A lot of times now, I think on average they say we stay at jobs for about 5 years. So if you work for 30 years and you change every 5 years, you could have 5 different little retirement accounts sitting out. Or one company may offer a small pension that you didn't realize you had. So sit down and look at all of the boring literature and just find out where you're at. Is Social Security going to be there? Maybe it's up to you if you want to plan that it is. It's up to you if you want to plan that it's not, but I'm going to show you where you can kind of figure out how much you'll get for Social Security. And then we want to figure out about how long may I live and what's the length of my retirement, and then what do I want to do in retirement? Do I love camping, and do I want to buy a used Winnebago, renovate it, and drive around the country, and then work at campgrounds throughout the summer and get paid like $100 to $200 a month just to take care of the campgrounds and camp for free? It's really what you want to do. Do you want to do hotels and resorts in Mexico? Are you the cruise type of person? Everyone has different goals and priorities, so just figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. I'm going to show you these websites, and we're going to just kind of, for the purposes of the class tonight, so we're putting in the same numbers on all these calculators, we're going to create a character. So we can do an average age, we'll guess, write in how much we want them to make, just so we know where our numbers are coming up, and then you guys can go home and punch in stuff for yourselves. I don't want to make it like super personal. I will show you on the next slide a different calculator that I used, and some of the information, because it comes from Social Security Administration, to actually get the calculation started, I had to put in my date of birth and my Social Security number, but then I just put in different income amounts that are not mine at all. I just wanted to have something concrete for us, okay? So the first thing we need to do is, we have a baseball park on here. It's the National Stadium. If you don't like the Nationals, I'm not cheering for one team over another. It just was the best picture on Google. So what we're going to go in is we're going to figure out a ballpark estimator of how much we're going to need. Do we want our character for the class, do we want it to be male or female? Good. Female? Age?
35.
35? How much do we want her to be making? Annual salary?
$2 billion.
Oh, $2 billion? You're going for that Powerball.
60.
Danny, you have to weigh your tickets, by the way.
51.
51?
There you go.
50,000 a year. Date of birth, should we say February 1st?
What's 35 years? 1980.
Is it 1980? 1981. She'll be turning 35 this year. So maybe we'll just say January 1st. How's that?
Boom.
Okay, I think that's all the information we're gonna need. I'm gonna bounce around to a lot of different websites. This particular ballpark estimate website, sometimes it takes a second.
Yeah, you showed us that last week too.
Yes, the Choose to Save website. So this one I showed you guys last week, and I want to put this in. So we're saying that our little gal's 35, she's making 51,000 a year, and you guys can go in and do this for yourselves so you figure out how much you need to save. How much does she have saved for retirement already? She's 35. What do you want?
She's got nada.
Nothing?
Nope. She's starting out.
0? Okay.
Ooh.
Her desired replacement rate, she's calculated she's probably hopefully not going to have a mortgage, and she's feeling like 80% of her current income could work because you won't have to commute as far to get to the office and things like that. Pension benefits, no, she's not going to have those. And yes, let's say for her, we're going to say Social Security is going to be there.
Sorry, this is my first time seeing this. What's that displacement rate?
Oh,
What
good
was
call.
that?
Thank you for asking that question. So that replacement rate is the percentage, desired replacement rate is the desired percentage of income you want to have. So you have your current income, and her current income is 51,000, and then she's going to say when she retires she wants to replace 80% of the 51,000. So that's where that comes from. Good question. If you don't want to take a pay cut in retirement and you say I'm making 51,000 and I want to keep making 51,000, that replacement rate would be 100%. It could be 50%. It's just kind of whatever.
How does that work where it's a retirement account? Because like her salary is 51 grand, but after it's taxed, it would be less. So is this like the 80% of 51? Are you considering that before or after it's taxed?
When I did some research on this, they're saying it's before tax.
Okay.
Good question. So we'll go to the next for the calculation. So this is saying that her retirement age for our lady, we'll call her Sophie, is going to be 67 years old because she can take her full Social Security benefit there. She is probably going to live 20 years in retirement. Her annual salary will increase 2%, so it calculates that. Inflation rate will keep at 3%.
What is the inflation rate increase? How does that impact?
Good question. So your inflation rate is the rate in which consumer goods increase each year.
Okay.
So usually they have a series, or they have like 200 items that they're constantly comparing. Usually like gasoline is on there, and gas kind of throws things, but like bread, gallons of milk, and just common like staples are what they measure that by. And on average, like in the 1970s, you probably recall the hyperinflation when the prices just went crazy. But they say in a stable market, inflation usually goes at about 3% a year. If you guys want, for purposes of this calculation, you can tell me, we can increase it. We could maybe say 4%, we could say 5%, whatever you want to do there.
That's a big increase.
Yes, a huge increase.
I had a question.
Yes.
The percentage goes by what time frame?
For the inflation, they'll do the consumer price index test, I think every quarter. And so they'll check it a few times a year, but I can double check for sure. I think my last time I checked that's what it was, but I will for sure double check. And then we're going to say, because we know that the market usually gets a real rate of return of 7%, factoring in the taxes and things like that, so we're going to bump her up just a little bit there. And then we are going to say when she retires, she doesn't want too many of her accounts in stocks and bonds. So instead of earning 5% on that, we're going to maybe bump that down to a 4%, just pretending like she put it into a savings account or like a money market mutual fund or something like that. So just based on these, and I like numbers and I love to play with stuff, and so I would just go in and mess around with it all the time. So based on that calculation, and we said she was going to have Social Security available, her retirement age would be in 2048. Her income replacement is 83%, and the percentage of wages she should save each year is 0%. You guys might be like, Shauna, you just ruined your whole class. We don't need to save for retirement. Like, does it really matter? This is calculating in all of her Social Security credits and things like that if she were to have worked from the time she was about 18 until she retired. Different people take different time off of work. Danny might decide that he's going to take a few years off and travel the world and then work again for 2 or 3 more years. So he'll have some years where he won't be earning Social Security credits. So that is what that means.
Could we go back and take out the Social Security and see themselves then?
Yes, let's do it. So if we're saying that Social Security is not there, or if you like to plan for the worst just so you're prepared, let's take Social Security off and we'll see what happens this way. I'm going to keep our rates of return the same, and we'll come back. And you can see that if she had just started saving today, so from the time she was 35 till she was 67, she would, without Social Security, she would only be able to replace 20% of her income a year. So you can see without Social Security is a huge, huge difference that way.
Sorry, do you mean she can only recover 20%, or she has to put away 20%
You should
to
save,
pay her?
it says.
I misinterpreted the data. Okay, so percentage of wages you should save each year is 20% of your income.
Okay, so say
So
20%. You would, I'm sorry to cut you off. And you would hit the 80% of your 51K, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, then you'd hit that. Question?
It's paid, but I don't think I
So she needs
have.
to-
So last time the 85 was the replacement, income replacement?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we'll go back.
The only question I have is, what about like COBRA or Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, because that's going to be a big, for me, a big cost because I won't have health insurance.
Okay, good questions. Yeah, so when we say there's Social Security in there, and I'm going to come back to you, Danny, right now. So the percentage, if you're saying Social Security is there and you're starting to invest from like now onward, percentage of wages you should start to save each year, they're saying 0 if you want to rely 100% on Social Security. But then if we took Social Security away, it's saying you need to save 20% of your income a year, which is the 20% of 51,000. Now, what do we do about insurance when we retire? This is awesome questions. If you guys have questions you want to talk about and we don't follow the set pattern on the slides, it doesn't matter to me. I want your questions to be answered. So, right now, there was the Obamacare and all of that stuff, and there was a lot of insurance. A lot of people are very much tied to jobs for purposes of insurance. You can start receiving your Social Security benefits, which is your income, when you're 62. You cannot receive insurance benefits through Medicare until you're 65. So a lot of times people want to be done working at 62, but they're super concerned about this health insurance because by the time you're age 62, to go out and purchase your own private insurance policy, a lot of times it's going to be what you might be receiving in Social Security. It could be up to $1,000 a month for premiums. So for your question, what do I do about my insurance? You would keep if you continue to work for your employer and you wanted to roll right into Medicare, you would work until you were 65 and then retire, and then you'd be able to sign up for Medicare benefits. If you're a veteran or a military member that way, they have different insurance benefits available to them depending on their years of service that could carry them the duration of their lifetime, so they wouldn't be as tied to Medicare as somebody else that wasn't a veteran. And I was going to say me because I'm not. COBRA coverage. What is COBRA coverage? COBRA coverage is continuing health insurance. And you asked a really good question, what about COBRA coverage? If you lose your job or you quit your job and go to another job, anytime you have a transfer or change in your employment, by law, your employer, if you had coverage, health insurance coverage through them, has to give you that COBRA packet. That COBRA coverage is the replacement insurance that you would end up coming in and paying if you wanted to continue your health insurance. your employer probably is helping you pay some of your insurance premium. So you might quit your job and say, well, I'm just going to pay COBRA coverage until I retire. Where your employer is helping you pay a portion of your premiums, when you get that COBRA packet, it will tell you how much you'd have to pay on your own, and it goes up quite significantly. I'm going to just do an example because I changed my employer within this past year, so I remember the numbers. At my former employer, I only had to pay $20 a month for my health insurance. When I requested the COBRA packet, just in case, because I wasn't sure when my new insurance was going to kick in, and I get super worried about things, I saw the COBRA packet, and I was, because of what my employer was going to pay, or was paying, I was then going to have to pay $357 a month to continue that same amount of coverage. So you can see if you have benefits or health insurance benefits for your employer, they cover a huge portion.
Would that go up with time?
Yes, and that would go up with time. They would base it, because our health insurance is based off of age, so as you're aging and still paying them, that's going to go up as well. So, and I'm going to be changing an age bracket here in a year, and so it's going to go up. It would have gone up on me. So good question that way. Any other questions on health insurance? Okay, we'll go on. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is some information. I'm just going to show you where some tools and things are at on the Social Security's main website. So if you go into Social Security Administration, you can punch in, and I'll show you where to do this, your Social Security number, your date of birth, and then they'll ask you a couple of questions about income, and it will generate an estimate of what your Social Security would be when you would retire. So if you want that retirement estimator, you're trying to figure out your different retirement options, go to ssa.gov. This is their main page, this is what this will look like. You can just click right there on that retirement estimator. It will pop up and it tells you all about the calculator and how it's not an official amount until you actually file for your benefits, and then you can just estimate your benefit and returns. The Social Security Administration, another retirement tool that they have, so here on the side it says estimate your life expectancy, other benefits calculators. So you can go in and play with a lot of different things there. But if you're wanting to estimate your life expectancy, and that's why we needed a date of birth for our little, for Sophie, you can go in here and it's based off of statistical numbers for our cohort, our age cohort. So your cohort might on average live till they're 85. You might have a history of heart disease or cancer and you're only planning on making it to 70. So those are just some different things to factor in that way. We said she was born on January 1st of 1981. I'll show you how long it's estimated that she lives for. Come on. So submit this. Sophie, we're saying, is 35 right now. She's expected to live for 50 more years until she's 85. If she makes to 62, they're expecting that healthcare and medicine is going to improve, so she's probably going to live till she's 88. At 67, there's still hopefully more advancements, 88, and then by the time she's 70, because of those advancements, they suspect she'll live till she's 89. So you can see there's about a 4-year deviation there. If you have health or heart disease, all of my father's uncles and my own grandpa died between the ages of 50 and 65. So if I want to base my history off of them, I don't really need to prepare for retirement because none of them ever got it. Granted, I try and take better care of myself than they did, but just look at your family history, and you can never really know for sure, but it's helpful just to kind of have a ballpark or a guide that way. Your banks and credit unions, a lot of times will have retirement calculators on there that you guys can go in and use yourself. And they're super friendly. And so just kind of look around. I have included some websites at the end of these slides and figure out what one you feel most comfortable using. Because they're all kind of going to get you the same information, it just, some are more complicated than others. So that's your own personal style that way. We'll pop back up to the presentation and I'll show you this information. So these numbers here, and I wanted to show you what this looked like if you had opt to go in and do kind of estimate your benefits. I will tell you some of the information. I started paying Social Security when I was 9 years old because of a family business that I was able to work at. I was angry when I found out I had to pay Social Security, but that was part of life. I learned at a very young age. So my Social Security, my information numbers have been in there and have been generating for 20 years. Granted, from the time I was like 9 until I was like 27, I wasn't really earning that much money because I was in school. But I just put these in and I said, okay, let's say I make $35,000 a year and let's say I make $40,000, and what will the difference be? If I wanted to take an early retirement and opt to pay my own health insurance, I'm tired of working, I don't want anything to do with it anymore, I'm gonna get my own insurance and then I'll get my Medicare at 65, I could start paying or taking my benefit at 62 and I would get $994. If I waited until full retirement age, which for my generation they're saying is 67, if I was making $35,000 a year from now until I retire with no increase in pay, I'd be able to take $1,400 out. And then if I wait till age 70, which is the highest age that you can take your money out with Social Security, when you turn 70, they start saying, okay, come on, you need to take some out of here. If I waited that long, I would have $1,700. So essentially, the longer you wait to pull out your Social Security, the more money you're going to get each month. They're figuring these on statistical analysis and life expectancies and all of that stuff. If you don't expect that you're going to live very long, or maybe you're diagnosed with terminal cancer when you're 62 years old and you haven't started drawing your Social Security, and it's not expected you're going to live for more than another 2 years, take your Social Security benefit out. Why not? It's some extra money for you, and it could help you with your fun plans if you want to go on a family trip before you pass away or whatever that is. If you're going to still keep working and you're not relying on your Social Security income, you can wait until you're 67. So when you go in and play with these numbers, you can go in and set these numbers to do whatever you want. If your income is 60,000, you can put it in there. If you make 100,000, you can put that in there as well. So that's what that will look like when you go in. We're going to touch on some employer-sponsored plans, and kind of like I mentioned before, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time after this slide on the differences between the two, but I want you to be aware of them if your employer gives you options and choices and things to weigh. What's best for Joyce is not going to be what's best for Liesl, and it's not going to be what's best for Danny or for me. So everybody is different, and planning for retirement is a very personal decision. Your defined benefits, like I said, these are typically known as your pensions. Employers do not offer these as much anymore because they're so expensive for them. With the pensions, the employer is responsible for choosing the investments. So the employer then assumes that responsibility. Hopefully they have good investment advisors and are putting that money in something that's going to give them money to pay those employees who have been loyal to them for 30 or 40 years. Something else kind of scary with pension plans. If the company is bought out in a merger, that new company that comes in and buys them might do away with the pension plan. So what you were planning on might be eliminated. If the company fails or goes bankrupt, usually it's pension plans that are one of the first things to go because they're so expensive that way as well. Your defined contribution plans, these are options that are offered through your employer, but as the employee, you get to choose which account you're going to invest in. They'll usually have 3 to 5 options. Some employers have 8 or 9, but that's rare. So you get to make the decision there. There's no promise of a gain. You could lose all the money that you put in, but it's going to be congruent with the markets, and usually market averages between 7 and 10% for the last 40 years. And one thing with the 401ks and these defined benefits, like when you go in and choose, if you plan on changing jobs a lot, it's easier to roll over and transfer when it's in a defined contribution than it would be with a pension.
What did you say was 7 to 9%?
The market averages for the last 40 years. And I'll tell you
Increase.
The increase, and I'll tell you why there's a difference. So the rate of return is 10%, but the real rate of return when you go in, you factor in like the taxes and like the inflation and all of that, is 7%. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to talk about 401ks, and I have a ton of information on 401ks. That information, most of it also applies to 403bs and 457s. everyone usually just, when they think of employer retirement accounts, they think 401k. So that's why I've done that. But I will tell you some of the differences. With your 401k plan, if you're working for a company in the private sector, so Smith's, Dillard's, Macy's, any of those companies, it's usually going to be the 401k plan that's offered. However, nonprofits can also offer 401ks. They just typically choose to offer a 403b, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. If you're debating about how much can I afford to invest, the general suggestion, if your employer offers a match, and a match is money that your employer essentially gives you for free to put in your retirement account. Employer matches can be as little as 0.5%. They could go up to 6 or 7%. The 6 and 7% matches on your income is very, very rare, but if your employer is offering it, take advantage of it. So what will typically happen is your employer, when you start, will say, okay, here's our retirement options, here's the plans. How much do you want to invest? If I was you, the first question I would say is, do you offer a match? If they say yes, then your follow-up question will be, how much of my income will you match? So if you contribute 3% of your income and your employer is willing to match you up to 3%, invest 3%, your employer gives you 3% free of charge, and then you've got 6% of your income going away to your retirement. If your employer is only offering you a 1% match and you're really happy with some other savings and investing options and you have some other things going on as your family, at least take the 1% match. Because you have your 1%, that employer will give you the 1%, and then you have 2% of your income. So if you're trying to figure out how much can I do, at least up to the employer match. Something important to check into as well. This is a common investment word, it's vesting. Vesting means, this is going to be convoluted and I hope it will make sense. So when you're vested in your retirement or you're vested with the company, that means that you get to walk away with all of the money that you invested, or all of your contributions, in addition to all of the money your employer invested for you. So if you hear someone say, I'm 100% vested, that means all of that money that's in their 401k is theirs when they walk away. The last job I worked at, I had to work there for 5 full years before I was 100% vested. I only worked there for 2.5 years, which meant I had taken advantage of the company's retirement plan, and I said, okay, I'll invest up to the 3% because that's what they were willing to match me. But when I walked away at 2.5 years, I was only vested up to 40% of my employer contribution. So I walked away from about $800. But was that $800 worth it to me to stay on with the company for 2.5 more years till I could take all of it? No, it wasn't. If you're trying to decide, if you hate your job, and one of my coworkers at this old job, he was ready to own his own business. He didn't like the corporate world, and he's an artist at heart. Office jobs don't work well for him. We all thought he was crazy. We loved the kid, but we were kind of like, what are you doing? He had worked at the company for 4.5 years. He was bound and determined that he could not hang on another 6. So he walked away because when he started the company, they were still offering a pension that they would let the employees take. He walked away from $13,000 because he couldn't stay on for 6 more months. So if you're trying to decide how long you want to stay at a job and you're really close to getting full vested, it might be worth it to stay on the extra 1 or 2 months so you can get that money and walk away. I have another friend who wants to change jobs and she wants to move out of the state of Utah, but she is determined to get another year in her company, so she's 100% vested and she'll meet the 4-year mark that they have. So those are things to check into as well. 401ks, they allow you to save a lot of money. If you're under 50, you can invest up to $18,000 of your income a year. If you're over 50, they call this the catch-up or the make-up rule. You can invest up to $24,000 of your income that way. So they're trying to help those who maybe didn't get as early of a start on their retirement. They're trying to give them the opportunity to do that. A lot of people probably can't invest $18,000 a year. Some people can. It just kind of depends on the family situation.
Does that count the match, or is that just money you put in?
Your contribution. Your contribution. Good questions. Roth versus traditional. We're going to talk about this now with 401ks. Question now.
So can you have multiple 401k accounts? or do you just have one?
Good question. You can have multiple because you could have 401ks at several different employers. Your employer might offer a 401k. They might also offer you a pension, and they might also offer you a 457 or something like that. So through your current employer, depending how they have it set up, they might be offering you different account options as well. But you're not restricted. Like the IRS doesn't just say, Daddy, you can only have one 401k. You could end up with 6 to 10, just depending.
But it's just offered through your employer.
It's the 401k is offered through your employer. And we'll talk about the IRA or your individual retirement account in just a second. Yeah. So good question that way. These are two terms that are very critical to understand, and this is where conversation comes in and is very important as well. For your 401k, you can decide if you want the investments to be Roth or traditional. I'm going to touch on Roth first. If you opt to go through the Roth, this means you are investing at this point in time in your working career money that you've already paid taxes on. So after tax money you're putting in your 401k, but you don't get a tax break now, but when you retire, because you already pay taxes on that money, all your withdrawals are done tax-free. Roth accounts are good for families that don't need tax breaks right now, and for those who are hoping to be in a higher tax bracket when they retire. Because then they can retire and take that money out and they're not going to have to pay taxes on it. Now, if you think that when you retire you're going to be in a much lower tax bracket and you only have desires to keep growing and growing that money, and it would be more beneficial to you at this moment in time, you might want to choose a traditional. Because your traditional accounts are pre-tax money, so you are getting a tax credit because it's lowering your taxable income. But when you take those withdrawals, you take money out when you retire, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Something that can kind of get a little confusing. Employers' contributions in your 401k or retirement account are always traditional because they can't get tax breaks for investing for you. But what you can do is, if you're doing your 401k and your employer is matching you 3% of your income, let's say they're investing $80 a month for you and then you're investing $80 a month, you can make your contributions be the Roth or after tax, so your portion is going to be not taxable when you take it out, and then the amount, and you might be pulling your head out, or your brain might want to explode and think, how on earth are they going to keep this straight? That's the responsibility of the investment firm. So they'll be able to know when you go to retire and you take your withdrawals, they say, okay, this percentage has to be taxed, this percentage is yours, and it's not. More on this. A lot of times if you're really analytical and you like to watch things really closely, be patient with your employer because they have up to 15 days into the following month to put your contribution in your retirement account. Employers, if they're investing for you or matching that money, they might not put their match in, only maybe quarterly or once or twice a year. So it's always good to find out because you might think, I'm investing $80 a month and my employer is supposed to be investing $80 a month, but I'm not seeing their $80. They are ripping me off. Rather than get mad at your company, call HR and say, when do you guys put in the 401k match? Just so you know, so you can feel more calm about it. If they say, well, we don't know, I'd push a little bit harder and have them contact the investment firm because they should know. With this money, 59.5 is kind of the golden number for your employer-sponsored retirement accounts and for your IRAs. So golden number for Social Security is 62 or 67, but with your 401ks, if you want to take an early retirement, you can start taking money out at 59.5. Some employers that offer pensions. Let's say you started working at a company when you were 20 that offers a pension and you want to retire when you're 50. If you get a certain number of years in with your employer, they may allow you to take that early retirement and you can start drawing on your pension. It's a lot of times why teachers can work for 30 years and they might retire when they're 51 or 55 because the school districts allow them to do that. Question?
As another point, some employers allow you to purchase money for your career as well.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That is a fantastic point.
It's expensive.
It's very, very expensive. Do you have a number?
I looked into it.
Okay, and I'm running the other way. So that's another good point. If your company offers some kind of a pension plan or retirement or allows you to buy years in the company, you can take your income and you can actually give it to the company and it will make it look like you worked at the company for 5 more years or 10 more years so that you get more when you retire through the pension plan. I'm going to use Nevada State as an example because I have family members that live there. I don't know the exact amounts and I can do some checking for you, but I have a family member who's worked in, when they retire, they'll have worked in the state of Nevada for 18 years. The difference between the 18 years and like 20 or 21 was quite significant is what they would get in their pension. So they're going to buy those 4 years. They're saving right now, they're saving very diligently so they have that option available. So you can buy years in a company as well. And that's a good point.
What's it called?
They call it, you can buy years. Do you know the technical term? I don't know. I can check.
Is it required pension plans to be able to do that?
Does it require pension?
Is it required by those businesses that offer it?
No. No. They do not. They don't have to offer it, and you're not required to do it either. It's kind of an option. Good point there. Rollovers. This is important. Danny, what if Danny worked at 5 different jobs and he has 5 401ks and he just doesn't like having that many accounts out there? You have 4 options available. You can take your 401k from your current job. Let's say you work at ABC Company. You're quitting there and you're going to go work at Jones Industrial. You could take ABC's 401k that they offered you there and you could roll it over into Jones Industrial's 401k if they allow you to do that. Some people might think, well, why on earth would you do that? What's the point? It's because if you have this chunk of change, you can throw it into Jones Industrial and you can start compounding a lot quicker. If Jones Industrial offers better investment options than ABC Company did. Maybe at ABC you're only earning 5% a year, but Jones is average 10% a year. That may be one way, so you can get higher gains there. You can take the money if you have an IRA open and roll it over and put it in your IRA. Or they have accounts called Rollover 401k. So let's say at Jones Industrial or whatever, they offer funds through T. Rowe Price, through Vanguard, and through Fidelity. And you may really like Vanguard, or you may really like T. Rowe Price, and you were really impressed with how they treated you. Let's say now at this point you're leaving Jones Industrial to go work at Software Incorporated. You might say, okay, I'm going to take my money from Jones Industrial that also has my chunk of change from my first job at ABC, and I'm just going to open my own account at Vanguard called a Rollover 401k. And you call that Vanguard, or you get online and you just set everything up. It takes probably only 10 to 15 minutes to do it. Because you'll go create the account with whatever investment firm you want to use, and then they'll contact your own employer and roll that money over for you, usually.
That term you're looking for is service credit?
Service credit. Thank you. So you can buy service credit. Awesome.
Librarian in the back, guys.
Thank you. She knows how to do research. She'll throw out those questions and she'll take care of it. Yes.
So Vanguard will call your old 401k, so you don't have to like take your account number.
You usually just give them your account number and your name, and then they'll have your date of birth and your social security number, and they'll just reach out and they can just transfer the funds.
And you don't have to worry about it when you
You don't have to worry about
I
it.
just don't know how the rollover works.
That's how that works. So let me know if you have other questions, or we can even touch base on that after. But yeah, that's a perfect question. Something else you can do, and I really strongly advise you not to do this if you can prevent against it, because you could actually reduce the value of the investment 50%. If you quit a company and you don't want to roll it over, you could take cash value on your investment, but they are going to charge you they're going to hold automatically 20% of the account value to pay taxes. They're going to charge you a 10% early withdrawal penalty, and then you're probably going to have early withdrawal penalties on a state, additionally on the federal level and at a local level. So you can reduce that quite significantly. This is a calculation I found today. And I'm going to tell you all this information came from FINRA's website, and I'm going to show you that website in just a moment. But you could potentially, over the course of your working life, lose up to $100,000 by doing this. So let's say you worked at a company for 8 years, you had saved $10,000. you decide you just want to take that $10,000 out. If your investment was earning 8% interest, your investment would have grown. Your $10,000 investment over the 30 years, if you had not put any more money in, would have grown to $100,000. But you took out $10,000, you're then penalized on that, so you might only end up walking away with $5,000, and that's the $5,000 you have at that one point, and that's it. So if you've got money started in an investment account, roll it over if you can. And I'm going to touch base. We know there's hardships and emergencies, and sometimes it's not an option. Sometimes life is not fair, just quite simply.
What is the deciding factor on moving it into a 401k or putting it into your Roth? Like rolling into your new company's 401k versus just your personal
Maybe
Roth?
your personal one. Preference in companies is a huge one. If you do research on your company and their investment firm or whoever they have theirs with is growing better than your own personal IRA, that would probably be the first reason.
So do they tax you immediately when you stick it into your Roth though? Because you said a Roth is...
Good questions. I love this. So this might be a little complicated, so if you need to break it down more, let me know.
Okay.
I'm going to say, and I'm going to say this example to make it as complicated as possible, so then you guys are like, we've got this, no problem. Let's say with your company, you invested in a 401k and you wanted your contributions or the money you put in to be Roth. Let's say your company also contributes into the 401k, remembering that their contributions are traditional. And you're leaving your company after 8 years and you're deciding what you want to do with it. This is another deciding factor. If you don't want to have to worry about the taxes at that point in time, you could roll it over into your new company's 401k if they allow it, and then your money would continue to grow tax deferred on the amount that the employer had in there. So you don't have to worry about paying taxes on that until you retire. If you look at your investment and you think, you know, maybe it's only $8,000, I'd rather kind of take care of the taxes now. Is your IRA a Roth or traditional?
I actually don't have one yet.
Okay, just choose one. Should we say Roth? Yeah. I'm going to say Roth for the purpose of the example.
Are you saying my new company or my old one?
Your, so I'm going to say your own personal retirement account. Your IRA.
Oh yeah, it would be a Roth.
Or Roth. Okay. So then if you're deciding, should I roll this over into, or should I put it into my company's 401k, or should I just put it into my own IRA? Here's where a huge kicker or a big decision maker is for a lot of people. If you don't want to have to pay the taxes right then or worry about the taxes, you can put it into the new company's 401k. If you want that 401k money to go into your IRA, then if your IRA is a Roth, your money that you put in there is Roth, so there's no problem there. Your money just goes in the Roth bucket. The money that your employer contributed, you could actually just take care of the taxes right then at that very moment and essentially transition or change the money your employer contributed from traditional into Roth. That is a huge deciding factor for a lot of people. Do we want to take the taxes now, or do we want to roll it into our Roth and just make it all out so I can guarantee all my money when I retire is my money, no taxes. Something else to consider as well. Maybe you are wanting to take advantage of the investment limitations for your accounts. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and then you can come back. So remembering your 401ks, you can invest up to $18,000. IRAs, so IRAs, these are your individual retirement accounts that you open specifically through a bank or investment firm. These are based on your decisions and you're always the owners. For IRAs, you can only invest $5,500 a year. And then if you're over 50, you can invest $6,500. So you're not 50 yet, and let's say your employer, in your account, you have $8,000, and you're trying to decide what to do with it. Well, if you're trying to roll over $8,000 into your IRA, you're going to max out your contribution limit, so you're not going to be able to dump all of that in there.
Okay.
That's another deciding factor. Whereas with your rollover 401k, which is just a separate account you'd open, or if you want to put it in your employer's 401k there, then your $8,000 is not going to come to that limit. So depending on how much you're going to invest, that's another contributor.
are you only able to open one IRA?
Good question. With the individual retirement accounts, per year, you can only invest $5,500 per individual. You could have 8 different IRAs open. So you can have as many IRAs open as you want, but across that broad spectrum, you can only invest $5,500. If you, and the key to IRAs to contributing in them, you have to have earned income. Alimony counts if you're divorced and your ex-spouse is paying you money. Spousal IRAs, you maybe in a few years decide that your wife is going to stay home and you guys are going to raise a family because financially it just makes more sense for you. But you're thinking, oh my gosh, if we lose her income, she can't contribute into an IRA. She could if you file your taxes jointly based off of your income. So per couple, so IRAs are 100% individual. Marriage or the couple comes in, if one spouse isn't working and the other one is, then that's how they qualify to contribute. But you can invest $5,500 and Melissa can invest $5,500. Same for everyone in here. You can invest it and then your spouse can also invest. So in IRAs per household, you could end up investing between $11,000 and $13,000 a year depending on age.
I need to get married again.
Daddy, come on. That's where it's at, bud.
It's not a good investment.
I want to retire early.
I need a money to retire. Maybe she'll have a good retirement package.
No, she got it.
Check that out on the first
That's
page.
what
Dang it. I'm sorry. So kind of back to hardships, and these would apply to all of the programs we're going to talk about. For qualifying emergencies, you can take the money out. You would still have to pay the 10% early withdrawal fee, but they're not going to ding you with all the other taxes. These qualifying emergencies are huge out-of-pocket medical expenses. Family trauma, you're in a trauma 5 unit for 8 months or a coma or something like that. Down payment or repairs on your primary income or household, college tuition and related expenses, a threat of an eviction if you're renting or foreclosure, and then burial and funeral
College
expenses.
tuition is an emergency?
Some companies say it is. So, good question. The IRS says these are qualifying emergencies. Now it's up to your company if they deem college tuition as an emergency. So the IRS says yes to all of these. Your company might say heavens no. So you could take it out for that and just pay a 10% penalty and use the money that way. So in the hardships. Your 403B plans, these are like 401ks, but they're for people in the nonprofit sector. One caveat of these is they don't offer as many options as 401ks do. They're usually only going to invest in annuities, which are extremely expensive, and I'll tell you just a little about annuities, and then mutual funds. So with your 403B, you might only have 1 or 2 choices. Annuities are insurance, and so when you buy into an annuity, you're buying into this insurance, and then you're buying that policy with the idea that in 20 years or 30 years, you're going to be able to draw a set amount of money on it. I was really confused when I first started working for Utah State, because I went from a 401k to a 403b, and I don't like annuities, it's just my personal preference. I think they're really expensive, and I feel like the money they charge could be put to better use in investing my money for myself. So when I opened my first prospectus, I got like 10 of them in the mail, and it kept saying annuities on there, annuities, and I was like, I didn't choose an annuity. Like, they botched this, I hate this company, what is going on? Well, a nice gentleman who I called on the helpline spent 30 to 40 minutes with me explaining some of the differences, and that in the 403 that I have, my only option is an annuity. So I decided that was better than nothing, but I was really kind of frustrated. So just realize if your company is a nonprofit, religious groups, charity organizations, all of that, you might not have as many options as you used to with your 401k. Same thing, you can invest up to $18,000 if you're under 50, up to $24,000 if you're not.
By the way, IHC, the largest health thing we have, is a nonprofit. nonprofit.
Yes, yep. IHC, Intermountain Healthcare, is a nonprofit employer, and so they offer the 403s. IHC has some really great benefits, actually. They have some really great benefits for their employees, actually. They offer tuition reimbursement and things like that. So, 457 plans. These are if you work for state and local governments. That might pertain to some people in this room. Some nonprofits will offer them. A cool thing about the 457 plans, if it were an option, is if you're within 3 years of retiring, you can actually contribute up to $36,000
A year?
a year. And
Wow.
they allow that with the 457 plans. And then they have tons of different investment options, and then your money goes in. And I failed to mention a critical point. You might be thinking, how am I investing? If you opt to invest in your employer's plan, you'll choose that option online or on paper, however your employer functions, and then that money will automatically be invested from your paycheck. It just goes in automatic every month or every 2 weeks, however you're paid. Something that's a good idea is you can set it to increase automatically 0.5% or 1% a year. So just by default, if your income goes up, you're automatically investing and not spending that raise. That's preference, yeah.
What would be the difference with a federal thrift savings plan?
What was the question again?
What's the difference between the thrift savings plans and the 457 plans? Thrift savings plans are for members of the uniformed or the armed services, and then kind of these other service agencies, the Public Health Service, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and then Ready Reserve, which to me kind of goes with like Army, Navy, and the National Guard. So if you're a member of the military or armed forces, your retirement would be the 450, or excuse me, the thrift savings. The main difference between the two is just that with the 457, on those catch-up contributions, you can put in up to $36,000, and then the thrift plan doesn't let you do that. Another thing with the thrift plans, you don't get matching contributions from the armed services, whereas you could potentially with the 457.
A serious benefit there. I had a friend who worked in the Coast Guard his entire career.
Yes.
Because he was outside the continental U.S., it was tax-free money.
Wow.
He was not in the country, and they were paying him, and he did not pay a bit of taxes.
You don't have to pay any taxes on that. So that could be a career choice.
Oh,
for
I
some
mean,
people.
I'll tell you what, he accumulated a great deal of money because of that.
Yeah,
He was a radio
taxes.
officer on a Coast Guard ship.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, the same could be true for others. If you're stationed outside the U.S. as a military, you're not going to pay taxes on that.
Is that only for people who are stationed outside of the U.S. though?
Yeah, for the time that they're outside.
Only for
I
the
mean,
time they're outside.
He would be on ship duty for several months, and then on shore duty, and they would just keep track of that. But when he was outside on the ship, outside the United States, he did not pay taxes on that. I'm sure I'm guessing that's true for the military as well. But I know he didn't. He bought his parents a new house.
Very nice.
He said, they put me through college, the least I could do is pay it back.
Buy the
Bought him a new house.
We kind of talked about the pensions before, set amount of payment, but, and so we kind of talked about this. Near the end, I'm going to touch on this and then it's the end of class. If you guys have questions, you can stay. Same thing with your IRA or your individual retirement account, you get to choose Roth or traditional. The choice is specifically yours depending on your situation and where you see yourself in the future. Differences here, with your Roth IRA, you can always take out your contributions in your Roth IRA without penalties at any age. You can't take out the growth, but you can always take out your contributions with the Roth IRA, okay? With the Roth IRA, you're not required to take money out of it. With the traditional IRA, they're going to start demanding you take money out when you turn 70 and a half if you haven't already. Excuse me that way. So you can pass this on to beneficiaries, or you don't have to use it if you don't need it. Whereas with the traditional IRA, they're going to say, okay, it's time. You need to start taking money out of here.
And you can set it up to where your children, whoever you want to be beneficiary to receive your IRA.
Yes. When you go in, because you'll open your IRAs at banks or investment firms, and on that paperwork you'll designate who you want your beneficiary to be. It might be a spouse, it might be your children, and you can go in and change those beneficiaries at any time. So if you were married and then your spouse passes away or something like that, and say, okay, it's pointless to have her or him on there anymore, I'm going to put my beneficiaries as my children, you can change those at any time. One other thing I wanted to really show you, I'm going to go super fast and I promise I'll let you guys go. My RAs were just started a few months ago by the United States Treasury Department. IRA funds, depending on where you open them, sometimes will have minimum requirements for your investments, and then they have fees. The MyRA account is simple and it's safe. If you're scared of losing money, these are invested in a special retirement savings bond that over the last year, or for 2014, the bond they put it in for the MyRAs gained 2%. Over the last 10 years, those bonds have averaged 3%. So you might be thinking that's pointless, it doesn't keep up with inflation. But on that same token, you're not having to deal with market crashes either. So there is no minimum investment required. You can open this account for as little as 50 cents. You could put $1 in there every month. The point of these accounts is they're starter accounts. So you can keep your money in here up to $15,000, and then you will have to roll it over into an IRA. Once you get the $15,000, if your account never makes it to $15,000 and you just let it age, then when the account's 30 years old, and if you haven't taken any money out of it, you can roll it over into your IRA. Good thing about this as well is if you need money to take out for emergencies or something like that, you can take the money out without any penalties. So these are really great. If you feel like you're savvy with investing, this might not be the option for you, but this is a great starter account. Whereas you can have 8 IRAs and various 401ks, you can only have one RA for the duration of your life. So if you open that RA now, and then you transfer the money out because you got the $15,000, you can't go back and open an RA 10 years down.
You're just giving the money to the government to invest is what you're doing.
Yep, you are. And that's what that is. But they're good if you're scared of market fluctuations. You can only invest up to $5,500 in this account because it's structured like an IRA is.
So would you be able to do this account for $5,500 and an IRA for $5,500, or do they count as one and the same thing?
They count as one and the same thing. They count as one and the same thing. So if your IRA option at your bank is gaining 8 to 9%, might be a better option if they have lower fees, just because you're going to grow your money much quicker.
Roughly how much are the fees, or how are those fees left?
On IRAs, it depends on the types of investments you put in there, and actually a lot depends on the firm that you use. When we talked about last week on an index fund, which they just put the money in there and hold it, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let everyone that wants to go can. You can get into an index fund, like an S&P 500 index fund, with an expense ratio of 0.15%. If you are in an index fund and they're not actively managing that account, I wouldn't pay more than that, because there's very good companies out there that do it. Your bank might charge you a flat fee, and they might say, okay, we'll take out $20 a year. So that's always one of the first things you want to ask. Next week, we're going to talk a lot about investment fraud, and I'm going to talk, I keep putting it in every presentation, but if you don't come back next week, you have it. There's questions and things on those slides about what should I ask an investment advisor. This is just the website for the MyRA account, and then there's a calculation of, like, if I put $40 a month, it tells you, and then to sign up, you just click right there.
To learn more or to find a class, visit slcolibrary.org/smartinvesting.